Thank you so much for joining us on World of Art. This is where we bring you art practitioners and together we explore the importance of art in our everyday lives. My name is Miriam Usman. This program is brought to you by Prince Yemisi Shillong, legal practitioner, Africa's largest private art collector, grand donor and chairman of Council Yemisi Shillong Museum of Art. On the program today, I'd like to kickstart the conversation with this famous saying that quotes, "The greatness of a man is not measured by the wealth he has attained, but by the number of lives he has touched while climbing up the ladder." And that's why on the program today, we have taken it upon ourselves to discuss and celebrate the life and achievements of an icon. An icon who will turn 90 come July 13. He is an indigene of the States in Nigeria and celebrated worldwide for his achievements and his passion to make things better for Nigerians, for everyone, for humanity. And joining me on the program today to take us further in this conversation is Dr. Paul Olusegun Bankole, who is a protege of Wole Soyinka. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. It's such an honor.
Thank you very much, Miriam.
You know, when I first met you, the first time I'm meeting you, it's like just an hour ago. And the first thing I saw you do was enough for me. And for me, first impression matters. It does all the introduction for me. I saw you reading a book. And when we're conversing deeply into the conversation, you told me that this particular book, you started reading it yesterday.
Yep.
And you're almost done reading the book.
Yep.
And for a moment, I was just thinking in between while we're having the conversation, this is something you rarely find among young people. And let's leave the young people aside. It's uncommon to see even older people be so passionate about reading. I don't know if I could find myself doing such when I get to your age. I mean, so passionate that I will find a book and then finish it the next day. That's so much. I really want to know what has been keeping that passion for you to always update your mind.
Update my mind. It should be the grace of God Almighty. Period. I mean, there's not. It's grace. It's just by His mercy that these things come. And then, of course, the training one has had in the past.
Yes,
I think that passion to know more, to learn the more. You mentioned something, that quote again, that
the greatness of a man. Yes.
Go on, please.
The greatness of a man is not measured by the wealth he has attained,
exactly,
but by the numbers of lives he has touched while climbing up the ladder.
This is one of those lives that Professor Wole Soyinka has touched and is still touching. Because this is the book you are referring to.
Yes.
Okay, yes. There was this video clip I saw about 2 weeks ago.
I'm just trying to show our audience
okay.
that the pen here signifies that that's where you were before you came on air.
Yeah, that's
this
right.
is a book you started just yesterday. Very, very interesting. Very interesting.
And I have heard about this Rating Igbophobia, written by him. In fact, this is the last intervention he did. And when I got to Ibadan on Saturday, Friday actually, Saturday I got to Spectrum and I got to Bookcraft and I saw it. I said, fine, this one I must read immediately, especially because of what we are planning. One way to know a man very well, or anybody or any institution, is to read about him. Now, this is the last intervention that he wrote, and I was like, oh boy, come on, you are way back. You are not trending. You should know everything about him. If you have conveyed something that would celebrate his life at 90, and you don't know a thing about this one. Oh, what if I got here and you asked me questions on this? How would I feel? Stupid, huh? So I said, no, I must finish. So I started yesterday, and I remember I didn't sleep until about 2 a.m. this morning. I woke up again about 5 and I started, and I got here again early enough, and you met me reading it. Yes, so I'm almost done. Before the end of today, I would finish with this, and then go on to another one I bought. This week, by the grace of God, I want to finish 2 other books on him, written by him.
So I was right when I said you always want to update your mind.
Just must do that, otherwise you are dead.
Very, 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 very interesting. I wanted to build some sort of suspense for our audience watching right now on the person we are celebrating, who is turning 90 come July 13. An icon all over the world, Professor Wole Soyinka. I'm certain that, especially for Nigerians, whether young or older generation, there should be one thing to talk about that man. You know, some know him as an activist, some know him as a novelist, some know him as an essayist, and he's just a lot. There are several parastatals in Nigeria that you cannot talk about how they've been successful over the years with their operations without mentioning Professor Wole Soyinka. Kongi at 90, I want you to walk us through it. What's the idea behind it? And I know Professor Wole Soyinka is known as Kongi. Not a lot of people, especially my generation, know that. So I wanted you to walk us through right from the origin, where it all started, and why we're here now.
Well, let me start with what we are planning. Celebrating Kongi at night, celebrating Professor Wole Soyinka at 90, you know. Wole Soyinka alias or aka Kongi.
Kongi, Kongi, not Kongi.
Okay, at 90.
Our new generation.
It's a thing of joy. Just like me reading books also gives me joy. It's a passion, you know. It's a thing of joy to know that somebody like that, who has gone through all forms of trauma and so on in this country, has lived up to 90 in Nigeria today. And so for some of us, for me in particular, I just felt the least I could do would be to get some of people together, some other thespians and, you know, artists from the literary and from the dramatic and theater world together. Let's put a couple of events together to celebrate him. And so here in Abeokuta, by the special grace of God, between the 7th of July and 14th, we shall be at Ake Palace. But within that 2 weeks, we have 2 specific days we are looking at. The one, we want to engage the community with health work and some other issues, some cultural issues. We're there inside the palace. And then day 2, we're already discussing with and all thanks to Omoba Yemisi Shilon, you know, who got us in touch with the Ogun State chapter of the Society of Nigerian Artists.
Yes.
They would be on hand to exhibit, and then of course they're also engaging students from secondary schools, tertiary institutions, artists from all over the country to contribute to this. We want to see them, not just portraits. I have seen a lot of portraits of Wole Soyinka. We want to see him, for instance, as a 2.5-year-old boy going to school, because Kongi started school at about 2.5 years old.
2.5.
Yes, we want to see him as a member of the choir, as a chorister then.
He was a chorister.
He was a chorister. Most people don't know that. We want to see him as a Sunday school teacher. Now, I've mentioned this now for those who think that...
Yeah, that's like an expo.
Yeah, we want to see him as a Maja, for instance, you know.
You know, I heard you say that Maja.
Yeah, because...
I'm sorry, I'm new school. There are a lot of things we don't know about.
That's right. You know, the FRSC, Federal Road Safety Commission, Wole Soyinka started, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. I was a pioneer member of that on Road 8 at the University of Ife when Bola Ige was the governor of, was it Western Region or Western State there? Yeah, so anyway, he started that. We want to see him, want to see people paint him as a musician, as an essayist, and so on and so on, in various climes, in various shades and colors. We want to see that. And then, of course, there at Ake, you know, in the amphitheater, we will come up with a lot of poetry recitals, musical poetry recitals, dramatization of some of the scenes and sketches we have gotten from Ake, you know, that he wrote, the years of his childhood. We're going to have all this there at Ake, and all thanks also to His Royal Majesty the Alake of Egbaland, who is our royal grand patron, who is supporting us in this. He's very much involved in this. We, as an Egba man and as a Yoruba man, yes, I want to believe that there are thousands of people like me who are proud of what Wole Soyinka has done. You know, I have, just like you said, I've been his boy since I was about 15, 16 in Ibadan.
That's a long time.
The Mbari, oh yes, the Mbari school, you know, and so on and so forth. Been a student, you know, here in Nigeria, in Ghana, and so he has influenced me a whole lot. And like I said initially, the least I could do would be, yes, okay, come on, let's get together and celebrate this icon.
That's so beautiful. You know, it feels like you're just confirming what someone once said, that it's better you start giving people their roses now that you can see them, and not when they're gone, you're giving all the accolades. And this is a very wonderful initiative to celebrate.
Absolutely. It's no use waiting until his death, for instance, you know, and then you start pouring encomium on him, tributes and so on. That is, I mean, for me, it doesn't make any sense, you know. Let's celebrate ourselves now. Let's celebrate him now, you know. And by so doing, we would also be impacting humanity.
Yes.
Because this is something we don't really appreciate in, you know, here, you know. And for me, again, it's not just a function of come 13th of July and we celebrate, we eat and drink and have productions and so on. What happens after that? See, I mentioned to you while we were discussing, there's nowhere in Abeokuta today where you can just walk in and you say you want some copies of Wole Soyinka's books. We visited a couple of places here in Abeokuta we couldn't get. I had to send somebody to Lagos and somebody to, yes, to Ibadan to purchase books. Yes, okay. There's no library here in Abeokuta.
Oh, we do have a library.
Where you can get books of Wole Soyinka. And one of the things we are planning now is that very, very soon, one of our long-term projects is to set up a library where you have all the works of Wole Soyinka, everything from A to Z. You go into that place, you are sure that yes, you have the books and the works of his music and so on, his films and so on. They'll all be there. He is worth more than that. This is look, it depends on the perspective from which you are looking at him. This is a poet, an essayist, a drama artist, a playwright, a freedom fighter, an activist, you know, anti-corruption campaigner, and so on and so forth, a hunter, okay? And so, I mean, it depends on which aspect. So you cannot really, you can't put him in a cocoon and say this is, no. He's larger than what we are discussing. We can sit here and I tell you, Miriam, for the next 1-2 hours we are discussing him. You want to discuss his works, you want to discuss his contribution to politics or to humanity as a whole, here in Nigeria or worldwide. This is the first black man, the first African to win the Nobel Laureate Award in literature. Come on, it's not a mean feat.
You know, we're walking towards those places where I really need you to point out some of these things, because it's important that we talk about these things. And I just want to remind our viewers that they can join in on the conversation by calling the phone line displayed on the screen. When you do, please try as much as you can to turn down the volume of your TV set. Today we are discussing the celebration, the Kongi at 90. I'm sorry, but this are the things. These are the things you get when you're not born in the 1960s. So people are watching right now, and I know in those days there are literal books that were made compulsory in schools, and some of them were the works of Professor Wole Soyinka. Even there were poems that we had to recite in those days. But I don't know how it is right now. A lot of people, born in the younger generation may not really know much about him. That's why we have people like you today. I just want you to take us just within the little time we have for on the program. Okay, I think we have Mary joining us. Thank you, Mary, for joining us today. Okay, we lost that call. Please turn down the volume of your TV set when you call us so we can communicate clearly. So you've known him for the longest, and you're right, you can't just confide him in his space because it's more than that. But there are things you can still talk about him that will, explain better for younger generation the kind of person he is. While we're conversing before now, you told me he started school from primary from 2 years.
Two and a half.
2.5. I've never seen a 2.5 child, start primary school, primary one. We still see some children that are 3, 4 years and they're like in the crèche or the pre-nursery or this, I've not seen.
See, look, Mary, the thing then, which I also experienced, you had to put your hand over your head. And if your hand did not touch your ear,
so there was nothing like crèche in those days.
You were not qualified to start school.
Okay.
But here was a boy, 2.5-year-old, who saw the books of his dad. And that's something about him again. I would encourage you and listeners and viewers at home to go through Ake, that book, Years of Childhood. Wole Soyinka would pick any scrap, would read anything. And just like he said, the library of his dad, he dealt with that library, that there was no book there that he did not go through. So this particular morning, he just decided he would start school. It was so dramatic. He had picked the books that he would take, yank up from the father's table. He did so hard. Well, he was cleaned up and so on. He dressed, and he allowed his elder sister to leave. So he picked the books and he followed at a distance, noted the classroom the sister entered. When the sister entered, he followed, and a few minutes later, just went in, climbed on the bench and sat there. And you can imagine that the students there were looking at him like, what's this joke? Who is this one, Long story short, the teacher in charge of that section came, and who knew him, because his dad was the headmaster. You knew him and said, oh, okay, Wole. And he said, yes, I've come to learn. He said, you are not yet qualified. He said, no, I'll be 3 in July. So it wasn't 3, I'll be 3 in July. This was January or so. Long story short, the man said, see, I've brought books. I want to read the books.
Wow.
These are the books of your father. We don't read them. He said, no, I want to learn these books. And the teacher told the teacher in charge of that class, listen, register him, put his name there. That was how we started. Again, in the same book, you will discover how at 11.5 years old, he was admitted into Government College, Ibadan. 11.5 years old. So you can imagine. And that was after spending 2 years at Abeokuta Grammar School here in Abeokuta. So you can imagine what he has gone through, and that has made him what he is today. I'm looking for that word, cerebrally he's just astute. You can't, what people say, you don't really understand his works, he's writing over and above us and so on. But yeah, fine, you see, it's just for you to take your time, and you discover that what he's writing there is just simple English, pure English. It is just for you now to make sure you also come up to that level. What I do, for instance, I've seen some words here. Between yesterday and today, I've learned about a couple of new words that I didn't know before. Okay, I got to them, pause, check. What does this mean? Oh, okay, oh, very good. So that learning process is there also for me. Now, fine. Here in Abeokuta, I want to believe that we have a lot of Wole Soyinkas in the making.
I was going to ask that question because it feels like I requested. Okay, we have a caller. Let's take this call. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
Hello, thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Hello, I can't hear you.
We can hear you. Feels like there's a lot of calls trying to come in. You know, the question before now, I asked if you could paint us a picture of who he is because you have this closer relationship with him and you perfectly delivered. Now, with the description you gave us, the only time I've, you know, come in close contact with something like that is in movies. When we see movies that promote junior students and all of that, what you're trying to say, this thing happened in real life. And I'm just wondering, is it possible that there were so many Wole Soyinkas in Nigeria that we probably did not find, just like he was found out for his outstanding performance right from the young child that he was in those days?
That's a very deep question, very, very deep. But I tell you, from the little I know about him, he decided to be what he is today. He
chose the path.
Yes, he chose that path. He just decided that, listen, you will hear him say in the book, yes, I will want to become a doctor, blah, 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 blah. But by the end of the day, somebody addicted to reading at that age just discovered that, wait a minute, the English language was just, he could use English so seamlessly, easily.
And I love his voice.
And you know, again, something most people don't know about him is that did he do his masters? Blah blah. He hasn't got a PhD, you know. He's a professor.
Really?
Yeah. Find out, research.
Okay. I knew there were so many things we needed to talk about.
That's why I said,
today.
listen, we can't finish everything.
All right, we have this question from Femi. Femi is asking this all the way from Ibadan. How can we, the outsiders, be part of the celebration, Kongi at 90?
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Femi. Within the next 2 weeks, you would find, well, in the social media, there's a documentary coming up titled Wole Soyinka in the Eye of the World. You could be part of that, please. All we would need you to do is pick up your phone, you know, just take time out, maybe about 10 minutes, and tell us exactly what you know about Wole Soyinka. From which perspective are you looking at him? Is he as a poet? Have you been a student also? And are you aspiring to become another Kongi? Are you aspiring to become a Nobel laureate, award winner, and so on and so forth? And then, of course, if you have time to come over to Abeokuta, please, yes. Again, we're just starting the promotions. You will know very, very soon the specific dates. But I tell you, just watch out between the 7th and the 14th of July, by the grace of God.
All right.
We will be here.
I told you that when we start this conversation, it would get so interesting that we'd not even know when the time is just up for us. And now it's that time. We've been asked to leave the studio right now. Yeah, but this person asked this question that I had in mind to ask you just to wrap up on the program. Recommending any of Wole Soyinka's book for youth. I think it's very, very important. Young Nigerians who are either aspiring to be someone like him or wants to do impact.
Young Nigerians.
Yes.
Oh, I would recommend this. I would recommend this once again. Please, Beating Igbophobia. You know, recently, I didn't want to go into this.
Yeah, the time is really not bad.
But all this issue of obedience and so on, some people saying some nasty things about him and so on. You just need to read this, and I'm recommending this to all the young ones, generation Z.
Oh, well, there's Z, but I don't belong in the Z. There's
Okay.
Millennium, so
Yes,
yeah.
and so please, you need to read. There are 12 of these now editions, so please, I would recommend this.
All right, thank you so much for coming on the program today. It's been a great time, and I trust that as the convener for Kongi at 90, there will be a wonderful one for everyone and even for our celebrants. So do well to extend our warm wishes to Professor Wole Soyinka. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
So this is how far we can go on World of Art. Today we talked about Kongi at 90. It was such a conversation. You can always access this production on our stream platforms where you can watch this anytime you want to. My name is Miriam Usman. This program is brought to you by Prince Yemisi Shillon, legal practitioner, Africa's largest private art collector, grand donor and chairman of Council, Yemisi Shillon Museum of Art. I'll come back next week where I bring you another guest. Until then, bye for now.